This is wrestling's greatest moments.
Hey now, wrestling fans. It's time for another episode of Wrestling's Greatest Moments. The 1980s have often been called the second golden age of tag team wrestling due to the abundance of awesome teams. However, the 1970s weren't wanting for greatness. Sit back as Wrestling's Greatest Moments looks at 7 Super 70s tag teams, Part 2. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single video. The criteria. These teams may have competed before or after the 1970s, but their heyday was in the 1970s. They also worked during the territory era. While many wrestlers worked in different territories to stay fresh, some didn't because they were always top draws. Consequently, a team only working in one region isn't necessarily a sign that they weren't as good as teams that succeeded in several promotions. There are many other Super 70s tag teams besides these 7, including the 7 covered in Part 1. Rest assured, we'll be looking at more down the road. The Love Brothers. Long before the WWF's televangelist Brother Love preached love while practicing hate, kayfabe brothers Reginald, aka Johnny Evans, and Hartford Love, aka Wes Hutchins, enraged fans with their hypocritical proclamations of love that were followed by sheer mayhem against their opponents. The two capitalized on the hippie movement, debuting in 1969. The Buffalo-based promoters of the NWF, Johnny Powers and Pedro Martinez, came up with an idea for a new tag team. Reggie was named after Powers' father. It was about 1969, and the Woodstock generation was starting to fade. What could be better than a couple of holdover hippies with curly hair, bandanas, psychedelic-colored outfits, and love beads? According to historian Greg Oliver, a team named the Peace Brothers, aka Bobby and Jerry Christie, was already working a similar gimmick on the West Coast. This being wrestling, that didn't stop or even slow down promoters from adopting the gimmick. Evans and Hutchins had already teamed together. Both men grew up in Ontario and worked under masks as the Hangmen, improving their skills as a team so they were ready when opportunity knocked, and they became the Love Brothers. While the Love Brothers weren't as successful as some of the teams on our list, they were no jabronis either. Some of their opponents included Jacques and Raymond Rougeau, Dominic DeNucci and Tony Parisi, the Texas Outlaws, Dusty Rhodes and Dick Murdoch, and the Fabulous Kangaroos, Don Kent and Al Costello. The team held the NWA International Tag Team Championship and one of the many versions of the NWA World Tag Team Championship. The Love Brothers' colorful gimmick exemplified savvy promoters' ability to tap into relevant cultural shifts, making the Love Brothers a top draw. Their in-ring work was first-rate, with the team utilizing every page from the heel playbook, leading to several tag team championships. The team became known for their mastery of cutting off an opponent from his partner and staying fresh with frequent tags. However, the team's real talent was getting heat, so much that a fan in Akron, Ohio, jumped into the ring and fired 3 times at the heels. Fortunately, every shot missed, according to Wrestling with Sin's Brian Damage. Before they took the fan to jail, the police took the shooter to the back and offered the Love Brothers to work him over before putting him behind bars. The Love Brothers ultimately turned down the offer. Reggie and Hartford Love's skills at enraging fans, not to mention real-life hippies who despised them for sullying their reputation, was another example of the tremendous heat skilled workers could generate when kayfabe was still strong. Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher. Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher are an example of a tag team whose members enjoyed success in singles action, but whose team eclipsed some significant solo accomplishments. Wrestling's Greatest Moments wants to note that although Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher's team is remembered for some violent programs in the 1970s in the AWA and WWA, there's a case to be made that the team's heyday was in the 60s. That's a debate we'll save for the fans in the comments section, as we feel there's also a case that their heyday was in the 70s. The Crusher, aka Reggie Lazowski, was a beer-drinking brawler with a burly physique whose blue-collar heritage endeared him to fans, even when he played a heel. The wrestler, who later became known as the man who made Milwaukee famous, worked blue-collar jobs such as bricklaying during the daytime while he wrestled at night. A debut around 1949 was followed by several years learning the ropes. However, a heel turn in 1954 marked a turnaround as he transformed into his personality of a roughhouse who loved to fight, and by 1959, he was known as the Crusher. As Langdon Beck writes in How About That, he was an old-fashioned wrestler who took pride in his physique, and his constant presence in professional wrestling meant he often sold out arenas and auditoriums, sometimes a week in advance. Advertisements for wrestling shows that featured Crusher were popular too. In one such ad, he promised to kick Bobby Heenan all over Milwaukee, and then have a party, take all the dollies down Wisconsin Avenue, and go dancing. Lazowski's career would take on a new dimension when he met a wrestler who was his mirror image, Dick the Bruiser. Dick the Bruiser, aka William Fritz Afflis Jr., played offensive line for the Green Bay Packers. There, he earned his nickname Dick the Bruiser, as well as a throat injury that left him with a permanent raspy voice. In 1955, he left football for pro wrestling, gaining another nickname, the world's most dangerous wrestler. Wrestling's penchant for hyperbole aside, the Bruiser made a compelling case for his nickname. His involvement in the riot of 1957, where he and tag partner Jerry Graham's antics against the babyface team of Antonino Rocca and Edouard Carpentier led to a riot, also led to his lifetime ban from wrestling in New York. Add in his infamous brawl with pro football player Alex Karras at Karras' Tavern in Detroit, and it's easy to understand his reputation for danger. Dick the Bruiser also invested in wrestling, becoming a partner in the World Wrestling Association. Wrestling has seen teams made up of partners whose distinctive styles complement each other. But here, the Crusher and Dick the Bruiser magnified the mayhem when they teamed. For years, the two terrorized babyfaces with their hard-hitting style, but fans quickly embraced them when they turned babyface. What worked so well for the Bruiser and the Crusher was their ability to fight fire with fire. They knew every dirty trick in the book because they used them for so many years, so fans knew that they were ready to dish out the punishment when they faced wrestling's various villains and scoundrels. The Crusher and the Bruiser battled top teams, including the Blackjacks, Blackjack Mulligan and Blackjack Lanza, Harley Race and Larry Hennig, the Vachons, and the team of Angelo Poffo and Chris Markov. They held the AWA World Tag Team Championship, a record 5 times. In addition, they held the World Wrestling Association's World Tag Team Championship 6 times. The Texas Outlaws. Dusty Rhodes and Dick Murdoch were naturals at playing roughnecks, because they were. The two Texas natives run as the Texas Outlaws saw some wild matches that allowed both men to hone their skills against some of wrestling's best, while enjoying a faster push than they might have had as single stars. Dusty Rhodes played college football and pro football in the minor leagues. He turned to pro wrestling around 1967, talking his way into a spot in the Boston-based big-time wrestling promotion, despite no experience. A trip to Texas's better-known big-time wrestling saw Rhodes succeed as a heel, with manager Gary Hart guiding him. Second-generation wrestler Dick Murdoch broke into the business in 1965, initially working as Ron Carson, the kayfabe brother of Don Carson. Fast forward 3 years later, and he teamed with Dusty Rhodes, forming the Texas Outlaws in Bob Geigel's Kansas City promotion, Central States Wrestling. The Texas Outlaws worked in various promotions, including Central States Wrestling, Big Time Wrestling, Australia's World Championship Wrestling, Maple Leaf Wrestling, the National Wrestling Federation, and the American Wrestling Association. Their wild antics in the ring entertained fans, while their antics outside the ring entertained their fellow wrestlers. Their exploits after many adult beverages entered wrestling lore, whether it was the duo adopting a pet goat, ribbing other wrestlers, or various amorous pursuits with the ladies. While Rhodes and Murdoch could do more than brawling, their violent style made for great matches against Roadhouse teams such as the Bruiser and the Crusher, as well as the Vachons. Other opponents included the Love Brothers, Ray Stevens and Nick Bockwinkel, and Bob Brown and Bob Geigel. The Outlaws held many tag team titles, including the NWA World Tag Team Championship, Detroit version, the NWA North American Tag Team Championship, the NWA Florida Tag Team Championship, and the National Wrestling Federation World Tag Team Championship. Like many great tag teams, the Outlaws split up so each member could pursue solo careers. As Dusty Rhodes recalls telling Dick Murdoch, "Dick, I need to go by myself, and you need to go by yourself for a while. You know what I mean? We've been on the road 360 days a year with each other and missed a lot. I've got to move on and try to find myself. We're young, and we got a shot." Rhodes and Murdoch occasionally teamed again, but their touring days were over, and as fans know, great things awaited Dusty Rhodes, while Murdoch went on to have a strong career in his own right. As far as Dusty is concerned, Murdoch was in a class all by himself. Rhodes told Sports Illustrated in 2013, "Murdoch was a special guy. I tell my classes at the WWE Performance Center about him when we talk about personalities and talent." The American Dream also rated Murdoch as the best wrestler of all time, adding, "There are nights he would take off, but even half of him was better than 95% of most guys in the business. Dusty would transform into his babyface character, the American Dream, winning the NWA World Heavyweight Championship 3 times. Dick Murdoch would go on to play his Captain Redneck character, winning many regional championships and working around the world. The Brisco Brothers. It's difficult to look at Jack and Jerry Brisco as anything less than an all-star team. Jack held the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, while brother Jerry was NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, both prestigious achievements. Although Jack and Jerry's schedules were full as world champions, the 1970s saw them team up in different promotions, battling the Infernos, the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, Gene and Ole Anderson, Jay Youngblood and Ricky Steamboat, Bob Orton Jr. and Bob Roop, the Assassin and the Missouri Mauler, and of course, their arch rivals, the Funks, Dory Jr. and Terry, a team we'll cover in a future video. The Briscos were often found in championship wrestling from Florida, but they also worked in other NWA territories, such as Jim Crockett Promotions and the NWA St. Louis Wrestling Club. Jack and Jerry also traveled to All Japan Pro Wrestling, and later, the WWF. Despite some historic feuds, Jack and Jerry often point to their early 1980s feud against babyfaces Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood as their favorite program. Working in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, the Briscos turned heel, a major departure as they usually worked babyface. As Jack tells it, he and Jerry's careers were about to end, and the two decided to finish up by working as a tag team. According to the book, The Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, The Tag Teams, Steamboat and Youngblood approached promoter Jim Crockett Jr. about turning the Briscos heel. Initially skeptical, Crockett relented, and the turn played out several weeks. The switch came subtly, when Jack accidentally injured Steamboat's leg by falling on him when Steamboat was trapped in Jerry's figure 4 leg lock. At first, Steamboat and Youngblood were willing to forgive and forget. But after the brothers pulled the same shenanigans a few weeks later, it was apparent that they had gone over to the dark side. Thus was born one of Steamboat and Youngblood's greatest feuds. The two teams traded the NWA World Tag Team Championship, while the Briscos engaged in heel chicanery such as stealing Jay Youngblood's Native American headdress. The series culminated at 1983's Starrcade, where the babyfaces regained the titles from Jack and Jerry. Mark Youngblood, who battled the Briscos during his team with Chief Wahoo McDaniel, described the brothers. "Those guys were all about wrestling for me. They were my favorite team to work against, and I wrestled a lot of teams." Jack and Jerry sold their shares in Georgia Championship Wrestling to Vince McMahon, a subject fit for another video. They had a brief run in the WWF, where they unsuccessfully challenged the North-South Connection, Dick Murdoch and Adrian Adonis for the WWF Tag Team Championship. The Bicentennial Kings. 1976 was a year of celebrations for Americans, as it was for Dennis Condrey and Phil Hickerson, who teamed up as a Bicentennial Kings in Nick Goulas and Roy Welch's NWA Mid-America promotion. The team's heel tactics gave the fans nothing to cheer about, especially when Condrey and Hickerson captured the area's top tag team titles, including the NWA United States Tag Team Championship, Mid-America version, the NWA Southern Tag Team Championship, aka the AWA Southern Tag Team Championship, the NWA Mid-America Tag Team Championship, and also the area's version of the NWA Six-Man Tag Team Championship. They also captured the NWA Southeastern Tag Team Championship. According to the book, The Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, The Tag Teams, Phil Hickerson broke into wrestling after a co-worker pestered him into considering working as a wrestler instead of in a warehouse. Hickerson debuted in the Goulas Welch promotion, teaming with Al Green. However, when Green left, it was time for Hickerson to find a new partner. Enter Dennis Condrey. Dennis Condrey, a high school football star, was working at a Frito-Lay plant when he decided to check out a wrestling school run by Gene and Ole Anderson, aka the Minnesota Wrecking Crew. The Andersons were known for putting prospective wrestlers through the ringer, but Condrey showed toughness, surviving the school and later working in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, aka Jim Crockett Promotions, as a referee and eventually a wrestler. In 1975, Jerry Jarrett decided to team Hickerson and Condrey. Jarrett once described them as a great team that was magic from the first day they teamed. Hickerson and Condrey were the type of tag team that complemented each other's styles. As Kayfabe Memories Tim Dills writes, Hickerson's size and speed, coupled with Condrey's solid mat ability, made them a dynamic duo. Add to this Hickerson's microphone talents, which riled the fans, and the team was doubly good. The Kings battled impressive duos, including Jerry Lawler and Jackie Fargo, the Wild Samoans, Afa and Sika. The Fabulous Fargos, Jackie and Sonny. The Fullers, Robert and Ron. Ricky Gibson and Jimmy Golden. Tojo Yamamoto and Tommy Rich. And Ricky Gibson and Bill Dundee. The Kings continued wrestling until parting ways in 1979. The Hickerson-Condrey combo is highly rated by fans who saw them. The problem is that in an era before cable TV and tape trading, fans largely had to rely on wrestling magazines to discover teams outside their home territory. Consequently, many fans were unaware of the Bicentennial Kings. The Tennessee Territory received very little press in the newsstand magazines during the time period, especially in the glossy After magazines. Hickerson and Condrey rarely appeared in these magazines, so their reputation as a team is remembered by those who were fortunate enough to see them when they teamed in the territory. Nevertheless, historians such as Greg Oliver and Steve Johnson have recognized the team's qualities. Wrestling in the Deep South in the mid to late 70s, Hickerson and Condrey are regarded by many observers as one of the best teams never to receive national exposure. Dennis Condrey would continue tag team success in the 80s, teaming with Randy Rose and later Bobby Eaton in the Midnight Express. Goliath and Black Gordman. When it comes to getting heat, the wrestlers the Great Goliath and Black Gordman knew exactly what buttons to push to set fans off. Although both wrestlers were single stars in their own right, they're best known for their innovative and successful tag team. Victor Manuel Barajas, the future Black Gordman, began his wrestling career as a vendor at Mexican wrestling arenas. According to the website SoCalUncensored.com, he worked in different personas before transforming into Luchador Black Gordman. Gordman had gained enough attention for his success in the ring to also have been given an acting part opposite Lucha Libre legend El Santo in the movie El Tesoro de Dracula, which was released in 1969. Gordman eventually came to the West Coast's NWA Hollywood promotion in 1969. A tag team with Pepper Gomez yielded championship gold, but his team with the Great Goliath would reap him countless championship rewards. Black Gordman also used the hold known as the DDT years before Jake the Snake Roberts popularized it. Like many future greats, the Great Goliath's career started off with little fanfare. Pablo Odoaz Crispin worked as a bricklayer alongside his dad, developing tremendous power that helped him later on. Wrestling lore has it that the Great Goliath's payoff for his first match in 1959 was a six-pack of Coca-Cola. However, he eventually succeeded, winning singles titles before teaming with Black Gordman in NWA Hollywood. The Gordman-Goliath team was incredibly successful. Although they teamed briefly before in Mexico, their team in NWA Hollywood enjoyed off-the-chart success, including 20 reigns with the NWA America's Tag Team Championship. While the two were from Mexico, they tormented local fans by claiming to be from New Mexico, insulting Hispanic fans from both sides of the border. Nicknamed the Red Demons, the team's colorful ring attire caught fans' attention, but it was their exotic ring style that made them stand out. Manager Oliver Humperdinck, who guided the Hollywood Blondes against Gordman and Goliath in NWA Hollywood, commented on the team's style. The combination of lucha and US styles was what separated them from the rest. They were great technicos, but had the ability to brawl with the best of them. Gordman and Goliath were a top draw, battling babyface and heel teams alike, often over NWA Hollywood's NWA America's Tag Team Championship. The Red Demons clashed with teams such as the Medics, Mil Mascaras and Ray Mendoza, Masa Saito and Kinji Shibuya, and the Hollywood Blondes, Dale Roberts and Jerry Brown, to name a few. The Red Demons clashed with Terry and Jerry Oates in Georgia, winning the Georgia Tag Team Championship. They also held Big Time Wrestling's Texas Tag Team Championship. The Hollywood Blondes, Jerry Brown and Buddy Roberts. Pro wrestling is known for borrowing, or stealing depending on your point of view, the names of famous teams, so it wasn't a shock when WCW paired Stunning Steve Austin and Flying Brian Pillman, christening them the Hollywood Blondes. Although the Austin Pillman team was good, the original Hollywood Blondes Jerry Brown and Dale Buddy Roberts were great. The Hollywood Blondes quickly became one of wrestling's greatest tag teams of the 1970s. Dale entered wrestling around 1965, honing his skills as he put over opponents. Meanwhile, veteran grappler Jerry Brown was working in Tri-State Wrestling, the future Mid-South Wrestling, with Jack Donovan when Donovan broke his ankle. Bill Watts decided to bring Roberts into Tri-State and teamed him with Brown, dubbing the team the Hollywood Blondes. The team gelled incredibly well, leading to major success for their new team. The Blondes wrestled from 1970 until 1977. The addition of manager Red Sutton, aka Sir Oliver Humperdinck, improved an already outstanding act, and they were one of wrestling's most popular teams. Dave Meltzer would write of the Blondes. After being the top team in the McGurk territory, they went to Montreal during the heyday of the All-Star and Grand Prix War, and were sought after from both sides, which allowed them to cut some strong money deals. The Blondes also worked in championship wrestling from Florida, Jim Crockett Promotions, Memphis, NWA Hollywood, and New Japan Pro Wrestling, capturing tag team gold in every promotion. Notable opponents included Black Gordman and the Great Goliath, Danny Hodge and Luke Brown, the Vachon Brothers, Mad Dog Maurice and Butcher Paul, Dino Bravo and Mr. Wrestling, and Antonio Inoki and Seiji Sakaguchi. The Blondes captured tag team titles including belts in NWA Hollywood, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, NWA Tri-State, Championship Wrestling from Florida, and Montreal's Grand Prix Wrestling. WWE Hall of Famer Jim Ross describes the Blondes as one of the most underrated tag teams ever in the business. However, fans who grew up watching the Hollywood Blondes know that they were a key team in the 1970s, an era whose tag teams have been overshadowed by the 1980s. Do you remember these Super 70s tag teams? And if so, what do you think of them? Don't worry if your favorite team wasn't mentioned, because there's more to come. Share your thoughts in the comments section and let us know if there are any videos you'd like wrestling's greatest moments to cover. In the meantime, subscribe to our channel, follow us on X and Instagram, and spread the good news about wrestling's greatest moments, the channel that celebrates the squared circle.